Hello friends, in this lesson we're going to look at idioms and expressions in American English that come from the metaphor life is a journey in a boat or life is a journey on the water or at sea. The idioms and expressions in this lesson and from this metaphor are built on the idea that life is a journey, which I talked about in a previous lesson. So if you haven't watched that one, Life is a Journey, then go back and watch that so you can see the basic ideas in this metaphor. The idea is that our life is like a journey that we're on. So time is like the road that we're walking on. The future is in front of us on the road. The past is behind us. And we go different places and see different things, and different things happen on this journey, just like in our life. Now in this lesson, we'll be looking at some other idioms and expressions that get more specific than the last one. So life as a journey is a very general metaphor, and it actually gets used probably in every language in the world. But these idioms and expressions, life as a journey in a boat, are quite specific to the English language, because the English language comes from the country of England. And England is a seafaring culture, which means most of the culture and throughout its history has been on the water or at sea. If we look at the country of England or the island of Great Britain here, we can see that it's an island surrounded by water. And so getting around by boat was a very common way for the people to travel. Fishing is a part of the culture. If they wanted to expand at all, then they would have to use boats or ships to do that. And we can see from this map here, which is a map of the British Empire. We can see all of the sea lanes or the shipping lanes that they would have used to travel around the world. So how does an island nation conquer much of the world or colonize much of the world? They do it through boats. And how did they travel to the Americas? They do it by boats. Which means that the people who came to North America from England were very familiar with and comfortable with life at sea or on the water. If we look at the United States even, the first peoples in the United States settled along the east coast of the United States. So fishing and traveling by the water was very common in the culture. And even as the people moved to the west, they did so first by the rivers. So the rivers were like the first highways in the Americas for the Europeans who came. So we've got the Mississippi River, which starts all the way up in Minnesota and travels all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. We've got the Ohio River that cuts from east to west. We've got the Arkansas River. We've got the Colorado River, the Missouri River. So the first settlers and traders were traveling along these rivers. So there are different ways that we can travel on the water and that these people traveled on the water. The first and most basic one is that we can swim. We can go in a small boat like a canoe or a paddle boat. In this picture here, we've got a canoe. We can travel in a sailboat, and then as technology developed, we were able to travel by steamship or motor-powered ships. So the idioms and expressions that we get come from each of these forms of transportation in the water. Just swimming in the water, being in a paddle boat or a canoe, being in a sailboat, or being on a steamship. So the first expression here is to be on board with something or to get on board with something. The meaning is to be in agreement with or ready or willing to participate in something. For example, is everyone on board with the new plan? Great, then let's get to work. So this comes from the idea of getting onto the boat. So you can see here in the picture, these people are going from land or from the dock onto the boat. When they get onto the boat, we call that getting on board. All right, so this word board gets used with boats, and you'll see it in other expressions as well. So when you're getting on board a boat, that means you're joining the other people in the boat. So here the expression to be on board with something or to get on board with something means to be in agreement with them because you're now on the same vessel, the same boat together. Another meaning of to get on board or be on board with something is to be employed or working with somebody or at some place. For example, welcome to the company, Dan. It's great to have you on board. So The idea here is that the company is like a boat, and now you are on the boat with the other people. So you are on board. And this is also where we get the term onboarding. So if you ever get a new job, you might have to go through some training at the beginning, and they might call that training onboarding because now you're part of their company or their business, so you are on board. Similar to this is the idea of being in the same boat. So to say that you're in the same boat means that you're in the same situation or have the same experience as someone else. For example, most students are in the same boat when it comes to having debt after graduating college. So most college students have debt after graduating, and since they're sharing the same experience, they're in the same boat, like you can see here in the picture. All of these people are in the same boat. They're traveling together. They're living together. They have the same experience. To go overboard is to say or to do too much because you're so enthusiastic or excited about something. For example, I think I went overboard cooking this dinner. There's enough to feed a dozen people. So you can see here in the picture, this guy is falling off of the boat into the water. And as we looked at before, to get on board means that you're in the boat, you're on the boat. To go overboard means that you fall off the boat. You've lost control. So the idea of going overboard is about losing control. You're no longer on the boat, you're off of it. So usually because you were clumsy or got pushed or something. So we use this term to go overboard when we're really excited about something, like if we buy too many things, if we spend too much money, if we watch too much TV, if we play too many video games, if we eat too much food. We call it going overboard because it's like you have lost control. You have no more control over yourself. And here, this man, he has no more control over where he's going. To miss the boat is to lose an opportunity to do something by being slow to act. For example, I decided not to go to college, but watching all my friends go off made me feel like I'd missed the boat. So you can see here from the picture, this guy was planning to get on the boat, but he was too late, so the boat has already left. He has missed the boat. So if you miss the boat in life, that means you miss an opportunity to do something because you were too slow or you weren't paying attention. So this one might get used in, for example, marriage or romantic relationships. If somebody waits too long to get married and then they can't find anybody to marry in life, then we can say that they missed the boat. Similar to this is the expression that the ship has sailed or that ship has sailed. So we use this when an opportunity has been missed or a situation is too late to be changed. So it's really very close to missing the boat to say that the ship has sailed. This one's just more specific because we're using the kind of boat as a sailboat. For example, I wish I would have asked her out on a date when I had a chance, but that ship has sailed. She just got married last week. So we can see here in the picture, this is somebody actually made a cartoon out of this expression, the ship has sailed, because they're comparing, it looks like green energy to old fossil fuels. And he says that ship has sailed, right? So it's too late for these ones. People are already looking for other alternatives for energy sources. To head out is to leave someplace or to depart. So this one gets used a lot in general conversation. If somebody's leaving work or if they're leaving somebody's house when they're visiting, they say, oh, I'm going to head out. For example, okay, I'm done with all my work now, so I'm going to head out. And I believe the idea here is that the front of the boat could be called the head of the boat. So if you are heading out, that means you are leaving the port or the harbor. So the place the boat kind of parks is the port or the harbor. So if they're leaving the place that they parked and going out into the open water, then they are head out. They're heading out. To be underway or to get underway means that something has already started or is happening. For example, the leaves are changing color, so fall is already underway. So the difference between heading out and underway, heading out usually gets used with individual people. So one person would say, I'm heading out. But to say something is underway, we usually use this for a process or for an organization or some big job that we're doing. We don't use it for an individual. Like a person is not going to say, I'm underway. They'll say, I'm heading out. We can say that the job is underway, the business is underway. Here, the season is underway. It's already happening. To run a tight ship is to keep a place, group, or organization very well organized and operating efficiently. For example, the boss runs a very tight ship and everybody is expected to work very hard. So this expression comes from the idea of tightening the ropes on a sailboat, because a sailboat uses ropes to secure and to turn the sails, and the sails are the big pieces of cloth that catch the wind. So if your ropes are loose, then your boat is not going to go very straight, or it's not going to catch the wind like it should. So you want tight ropes. So if your ropes are tight, then your boat is going to be able to travel smoothly and efficiently. If your ropes are loose, then it's not going to go very well. So to say you're running a tight ship means like the ropes are tight, right? Which basically means you're doing a good job. Now here we can see in the lower picture, these are sailors on a Navy ship, right? And they're very orderly. They're all organized. They're in a row. They're saluting. So this is what people think of now when they think of a tight ship. Everybody's organized, everything's in order, and everything's operating very well. Everything is going smoothly and well, even though it comes from this idea of ropes. So the tight is actually talking about the tight ropes, having the ropes be tight. To learn the ropes or to know the ropes. Again, we're getting back to sailing. So you can see here, this is the sail, this white piece of fabric here. This is the sail. In order to steer a sailboat, you need to move the ropes and tie the ropes in different places. So you want to have tight ropes in order to hold the sail tight, but you need to know how to move the ropes. So where do you pull the ropes? Where do you tie the ropes? Things like that. So if you're learning how to do a job or activity, then you have to learn the ropes or know the ropes. For example, it always takes a little while to learn the ropes when you start a new job. So this guy here, it looks like he's learning the ropes, learning how to move the ropes, but we can use this for any situation or any job where you're learning something. On the other side of this is to show or to teach someone the ropes, right? So this guy here maybe is teaching this guy here. So he's showing him the ropes, or he's teaching him the ropes. So to show someone how to do a job or activity is to show or teach the ropes. For example, it's usually the manager's responsibility to show new employees the ropes at a job. So it doesn't matter where you're working, right? So let's say you get a job at McDonald's and you're just learning the job, and you ask somebody who's been working there for a long time, you say, hey, can you teach me the ropes, right? So can you teach me how to do this job? And they say, yeah, I'll show you the ropes. So I'm going to teach you how to do this job. To be on course for something is to be likely to achieve something. For example, I'm on course for graduation in the spring. So in the basic metaphor that life is a journey, if we're walking on a road or we're walking on a path. If we're on the water, there are no roads and there's no path. Instead, what we have is the course. So if we're on course, that means we're on the road or we're on the way somewhere. We're going in the right direction. So to be on course for something is you're likely to achieve it because you're going in the right direction. So if I'm on course for graduation, then that means I'm doing everything I need to do right now. I'm heading in the right direction. I'm not heading in the wrong direction. To go with the flow is to do what other people are doing or agree with the opinions of others. For example, when you're new in a school, it's easiest to just go with the flow for a while and see what people are like. So the flow comes from the direction that the water is naturally traveling. So let's say this river here. Let's say it looks like the water is traveling this way. So in a river, the water usually just travels one way. So the direction that the water naturally travels is called the flow. So to go with the flow means that you're just letting the water carry you where the water is going. You're not paddling, you're not swimming, you're not doing anything. So you can see these people here, they're in rafts. They're not doing anything. They're just hanging out. They're just sitting in their rafts, right? They're going with the flow. So we can use this in any situation where you're doing what other people are doing, you're agreeing with them. You're just going with the flow. The opposite of this is to go against the flow, which means to do or say the opposite of what most people are doing or saying. For example, he likes to go against the flow just to get a reaction out of people. So you can see here in the picture, this fish is going against the flow of these other fish. Another word for this in English is to rebel. So to rebel is to do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. Or we could say you're going against the flow. To steer clear of something or to steer clear of someone is to avoid someone or something that seems unpleasant, dangerous, or likely to cause problems. For example, they warned their children to steer clear of drugs. So this idea comes from being in a boat and then having something dangerous in front of you or something you need to go around. So to steer clear means to go around it because you steer the boat. To steer clear means away from it. So you can see in the picture here, these two boats are about to crash into each other, but they both steer clear by going around each other. So they're steering clear of each other. So we can use this for any situation where there's somebody or something that looks unpleasant, dangerous, or likely to cause problems. For example, if you are out in a city somewhere, you try to avoid the places that look dangerous. So you're steering clear of those places. Or if you're at home and your mom or your dad is in a bad mood, right? And so that you don't get yelled at or get in trouble, you just stay away from them. You go to another room or something like that. You're steering clear of them. Different from this is the idea of smooth sailing. So smooth sailing is to be easy and without problems. For example, the roads were busy as we drove out of town, but after that it was smooth sailing. And you can see here from the picture, the water is very calm and very smooth, so it would be very easy for this boat to travel quickly. It's smooth sailing. Then we've got the idea of making waves. To make waves is to shock or upset people with something new or different. For example, when I started the job, a friend told me not to make waves because the managers didn't like people to disagree with them. So here the idea is like a boat in the water. When it is first dropped into the water or moves through the water, it creates waves. And you can see here in the picture, it would be better if I had a video of this. So this boat actually was just on land, and then they dropped it into the water. When they dropped it into the water, it made a big wave. So the water coming up we call a wave, and the wave crashed over this street. So you can see the water running down the street. So it's affecting this street because this thing was just dropped into the water. So this big ship made waves. It made waves and affected the things around it. So when we say that somebody or something makes waves, it shocks or upsets people with something new or different. Culturally, right? So, for example, in the United States, back in the 1950s, rock and roll music was kind of a new thing. So when you had a musician who was playing rock and roll music, it kind of made waves in the culture because people thought, oh, that's new, that's different, I don't like that music. For example, Elvis Presley, the singer, made waves because of the way he played music and the way he danced and stuff. It makes waves. So anybody who does anything shocking or new in the culture is making waves. To rock the boat is to do or say something that upsets people or causes problems. For example, it's better not to rock the boat when you first start a job. So it's kind of similar to making waves, but when we make waves, it's usually something that's new. When we're rocking the boat, that means that we're part of a group or an organization or a culture, and we're starting to do something different that upsets people or causes problems. So you can see here this guy, he's standing on the boat and he's rocking his feet back and forth, which is causing the boat to tip one way and the other way. So these people are scared. They're scared because they think that he might tip the boat over. He's rocking the boat. So if you're in a company or at a job and you have been working there for a while, and then you start to do something different that might upset some people, then you're rocking the boat. So when people start to feel uncomfortable, they'll say, don't rock the boat, right? Don't change the way we're doing things. To drown in something is to have more of something than you are able to deal with. For example, many Americans are drowning in debt from houses, cars, and credit cards. So to drown is a verb that we use when you are underwater and you cannot breathe anymore. So if you die from being underwater, you have drowned. When you're drowning in something, that means you have more than you're able to deal with, because like somebody who's drowning, there's too much water and they're not able to deal with all the water, so they sink in the water and they suffocate, they die. We use this one a lot with debt and also with work. So you're drowning in debt, drowning in work. It's just too much for you to deal with. To keep afloat or to stay afloat is to stay out of difficulty, especially financially, so with money. When a boat is afloat, that just means it's floating on the water. It's on the water. To stay afloat or to keep afloat means that you're working in order to stay above the water. So you can see this guy here. He's not in a boat. He's in a bucket, some kind of bucket here. Now, you probably wouldn't want to travel in the water in this bucket because it looks like it could very easily sink, right? He's afloat, so he's floating on the water, but he probably has to be very careful and work hard in order to stay afloat. So we use this one a lot with finances or money. For example, John and Jill were having problems paying their bills, so John got a second job to keep them afloat. So the idea here is that they're trying to survive, they're trying to live, and they're having to work harder to do that. Now, if somebody's not able to keep afloat, then they drown, right? So you can be drowning in debt. But if you're not drowning, if you're barely surviving, if you're barely living, then you are afloat. Whatever floats your boat, so again, we see this word float. Whatever floats your boat is used to tell someone to do whatever makes them happy or whatever they want. So this is kind of a funny expression. It always gets used like this. We don't really change the words because it rhymes. Whatever floats your boat. So float and boat rhyme. So we'll say this when we just tell somebody, do whatever you want, right? For example, for dinner, we can have whatever floats your boat. I don't really care, right? So if my son comes to me and says, Daddy, can I do this? If I say, hey, whatever floats your boat, that means do whatever makes you happy. I don't really care. So it's kind of a fun one to use when you just tell somebody to do whatever they want. To keep your head above water. So here we're floating, right? To keep your head above water is to stay out of trouble, especially financial difficulties. Also to keep up with work or other demands. So it's related to the idea of drowning, staying afloat, or, whatever floats your boat. Not really that one. But keeping your head above water, you can see here in the picture, this guy, his whole body's underwater, but his head is above the water, so he's still alive. He's just barely surviving. He's just barely living. So for example, with new bills coming in every day, they're barely keeping their heads above water. So if somebody asks you how you're doing, right? Like if you're having trouble paying your bills, paying your rent, buying food, if somebody asks you how you're doing, if you say, I'm keeping my head above water, then that means you have just enough money to live, but not enough to really do anything else, and you're very close to not having enough money. Troubled waters is a term we use for a difficult or confusing situation. For example, John brought home flowers in order to try to calm the troubled waters he caused when he forgot his wife's birthday. So troubled waters, confusing or difficult situation. You can see here in the picture, the waters are crashing, thrashing around. There's a lot of waves here. Basically, when you look at this, you don't want to put a boat on that. I would not want to be on a boat in this water, right? So we call it troubled waters, meaning the waters are dangerous. It's a place we don't want to be. To be in uncharted waters is to be in a situation that is not well known and may be dangerous. For example, scientists are entering uncharted waters by genetically modifying the food we eat. So if we look over here at the picture, this is a chart. So a chart is like a map, but a chart is like a map that they use when they're sailing a boat on the water or driving a boat on the water. Because when we're on the water, we have to measure how far we've gone in the north-south direction and the east-west direction. So they have to use charts to keep track of where they are. Because if you're out in the ocean, it's not like you can look for buildings or any other kinds of signs around you, right? So you have to pay attention to where you are on a chart. So you use a chart to do that. If it is uncharted, then that means that we don't have information for that place. So if you look at this picture here, you can see it's like a map of North America and South America, but part of it is missing over here. This part here is uncharted. It's unknown. That's why it's not filled in on the map here. So to say that something is uncharted waters, it means it's a situation that is new or not well known, and it may be dangerous. We don't know what's here, right? Are there monsters here? Are there dragons here? We don't know. It's uncharted. So to say that scientists are entering uncharted waters by genetically modifying the food we eat, that means we've never done this before. Scientists have never genetically modified food before. So doing it now, it may be okay, but we don't know, right? It's uncharted, it's unknown territory. So it could be dangerous, and we won't find out for a long time. To be on the rocks is experiencing very severe difficulties and likely to end very soon. For example, their marriage was on the rocks after she caught him cheating. And in the picture here, you can see this boat is stuck on the rocks. Obviously, if you are in a boat, you do not want to be on the rocks because a boat is meant to be in the water. So if you're on the rocks, it's a dangerous situation. It doesn't mean that you are dead or that your thing is ended. But it's dangerous because if the waves come in and start banging against the boat, it's going to start breaking the boat into pieces. It's going to fall apart. So right now, the way this boat is, they might be able to safely move this boat off of the rocks, but it's a very dangerous situation. So this term on the rocks gets used a lot for marriages and for serious relationships. It means that it's not over yet, but it could be over very soon, and it could be very bad when it ends. To be out of your depth or out of one's depth is not having the knowledge, experience, or skills to deal with a particular subject or situation. For example, he was out of his depth in calculus, so he took algebra instead. And the idea here is that the depth is how deep the water is, right? So here we can't even see the bottom, so we don't know how deep this is. We don't know the depth of it. So deep is an adjective, depth is a noun. So to be out of your depth means you are in water that is too deep for you to deal with, right? I would not want to be swimming in water this deep. It'd be too dangerous for me. So it's out of my depth. So we can use this especially for any subject where we don't have enough knowledge or skill, right? So we can say I'm out of my depth in this. To put the wind in someone's sails is to make someone feel more confident or more determined to do something. For example, when he got an A on the test, it really put the wind in his sails to continue working hard in the class. So you can see here, these people on a sailboat, the wind is in their sails. They're very tight, which means that they're going to go forward, right? So because there's wind in their sails, they can make progress. They can go forward. So to put the wind in somebody's sails is to make them feel more confident or determined to do something. It's giving them more energy, basically, giving somebody more energy to continue or to finish something. The opposite of this is to take the wind out of someone's sails. So we can see here the sails are limp. There's no wind in the sails, which means the boat is not going to go anywhere, right? So this boat's going somewhere. This boat is going nowhere. So to take the wind or knock the wind out of someone's sails is to make someone feel less confident or less determined to do something, usually by saying or doing something that they are not expecting. For example, he thought he was doing great in class, but when he got an F on the test, it really took the wind out of his sails. So he lost excitement, he lost energy, he lost enthusiasm. So the wind is like the energy or the excitement or the power that you have to do something. And to navigate something is to know how to get somewhere, to do something, or to manage a situation. For example, in a difficult situation, in an organization, or on the internet. For example, one of the hardest things about doing classes online is knowing how to navigate the technology and websites. So navigate it's just a word. It's a verb, but it comes from being in a boat. So when you're in a boat and you're trying to find your direction, you are navigating, because the nav here comes from the sea or from water. So any kind of a situation that you're in where you're trying to find out how to do something or to understand the situation, you are navigating the situation. In the wake of something is what happens after or because of something else. For example, in the wake of 9/11, airports around the United States added a lot more security. So we can see here, this is the boat. The water in front of the boat is normal, but the water behind the boat has these waves. So this part of the waves we call the wake. The wake is what the boat leaves behind. So all of these waves here are called the wake of the boat. So when we say that something happens in the wake of something, it's happening because of or after something else, because the wake is after the boat here. So in the wake of 9/11, airports around the United States added more security because in 9/11, there were terrorists that hijacked airplanes and crashed them into buildings. So because of this, the airports around the country added more security so that people couldn't hijack planes like that anymore. So in the wake of 9/11, so after 9/11 or because of 9/11, airports around the United States added more security. So in the wake of means after or because of. And on an even keel. On an even keel or even-keeled means calm, stable, or balanced. For example, after COVID-19 has passed, it might take a while to get the economy back on an even keel. So if we look at this picture of a sailboat, these are the different parts of a sailboat. Most of these don't get used in any idioms or expressions. You might hear the word rudder sometimes, but this is the keel down here. The keel helps to keep the boat balanced in the water. So if you're on an even keel, that means the boat is balanced. If you're not on an even keel, the boat is tipping one way or the other. It's not balanced. So if we say that something is on an even keel, it is calm, stable, or balanced. So to talk about the economy being on an even keel, it means the economy is balanced again. It's stable again. Also, if you know somebody who's generally calm or generally stable, if they're a calm and stable person, you can say they're an even-keeled person. Even-keeled. All right, so that's it for this lesson on idioms and expressions that come from the metaphor, life is a journey in English. Thanks for watching.